All right, today we're going to make my rice pilaf. Just a few items about cooking rice and rice pilaf in general. Whenever you make rice, the basic proportion that you use is twice the amount of water to the amount of dry rice. So if you want to end up with 3 cups of cooked rice, then you use a cup of dry to 2 cups of water, and that'll yield you about 3 cups when it's finished. As far as rice pilaf go, there's tons of different ways to make it what people call traditional rice pilaf. It can be as simple as rice, chicken stock, salt, pepper. Usually there's butter and or oil in it, minced onion, and fresh chopped parsley. It can be as simple as that. The way I make mine, we're going to do a batch to yield a little bit more. We're going to use 2 cups of rice and 4 cups of chicken stock that's been seasoned, a 1/4 cup of my clarified butter. If you don't have clarified butter on hand, you can use 2 tablespoons of butter and 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil or olive oil. Then I'm also going to put chopped carrots and onion that are going to go into mine, and I'll discuss the seasonings that I use for the stock itself. First thing I'm going to do is take my pan that the rice is going to be cooked in the oven with the butter, and I'll throw it into a 350 degree oven just long enough for that melt, and then I'll toss the rice in and put it back in the oven, and I'll pick it up from there. Then once my butter or oil is completed melted, I'll go ahead and throw the dry rice in there and throw it back in the oven for about 10 minutes, stirring occasionally. I'll throw it back in the oven, check it after about 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, stir it up a little bit, and that's how we get it started. So I just gave it a stir, put it back in the oven, and while it's in there getting lightly brown, you can go ahead and assemble the rest of your ingredients. And for mine, again, I use 2 cups of rice, so I'm going to use 4 cups of water. And then I add a tablespoon of chicken bouillon to that, as well as a tablespoon of minced cilantro. I use that instead of fresh parsley. And then I put in a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, ground coriander, and cayenne pepper, and I'll just bring that up to just below a boil. We don't want it to boil away and lose some of its water volume while the rice is getting brown. And then I dice up, small diced, 1/2 cup of onion and 1/2 cup of carrots, which are both in there. And then once the rice has gotten lightly brown, I'll show you the next step. A couple of quick notes about the veggie blend and the stock. As far as vegetables go, you can include some other ones if you like. Celery is common. You can add finely minced jalapeno if you really want to kick it up. You can add small diced red pepper or green pepper. I would suggest that if you just do straight onion like the traditional method, keep it about a 1/2 cup. If you do any combination of other vegetables, no matter how many you put in there, keep your total volume at about a cup. More vegetables mean more water. It may not cook to your liking. Also, you don't want it to overwhelm the pilaf. And as far as the stock goes, again, you can adjust it up or down. You can use white pepper instead of black pepper. Put different herbs in, different spices. Just kind of depends on what you're in the mood for. All right, I actually let this go a little bit longer to try to get some color on the rice. I let it go 20 minutes in the oven. Then we're going to throw the vegetable blend in and stir it up. Toss it back in the oven for 5 minutes. If you use the 1/2 butter and 1/2 oil method, you're going to see some color quicker. Again, because that butter has salt and water in it. So that's going to hasten your browning a little bit. I prefer to use clarified butter just because I know I don't lose anything. It doesn't start to diminish and burn off from the water. So while that's back in for the next 5 minutes, you can touch up your stock. Bring it back up to at least a simmer, right when it's starting to boil. You can give it a taste, adjust your flavorings however you want, You don't want so much chicken bouillon in it that it tastes like chicken soup or ramen. You just wanted to give it a little bit of flavor profile from the broth. Once that 5 minutes is up on the veggie and rice blend, we'll combine the two and seal it off, and I'll show you that next. Okay, after 5 minutes in with the veggies, we're going to pull it completely out of the oven. We've brought our stock to a simmer, and we'll go ahead and add that to the pan. Give that a stir, and we're going to let it sit out for about 5 minutes or so. We don't want it to cool all the way off, but we want the pan to get a little bit cool because we're going to cover it. Once it's cooled off just a few minutes, I go ahead and cover it completely in saran wrap, and then I'll put foil on it. Your saran wrap is going to melt to the pan when you cook it, but after you get all done and you're ready to clean your pan, soak it in some water and just use a butter knife, and you can scrape all the plastic off. Trust me, I've done it numerous times. Now I've got the foil on over the film, and I've crimped it very tightly. The reason you do that 2-wrap method is to try to keep as much steam in as possible. So I always use a lipped pan so I can get that good crimp, and we'll throw it back in our 350-degree oven and check it after 40 minutes. All right, it's 40 minutes, and we went ahead and pulled the rice out of the oven. We're going to leave the oven on. What we're going to want to do is peel back the foil, the covering, the film and foil, but you don't want to rip it. Just peel it back carefully. We're going to let it sit out for a couple of minutes so we don't burn our fingers. You can use oven mitts or towels, but you want to be careful when you open it up. If you've got a really good tight seal, that steam that comes out can burn you. You also want to make sure, like I said, not to rip the foil, because if it's not quite finished, then you're going to want to reseal it and put it back in the oven for a little bit. Different amounts of water you put in, more vegetables, the humidity, how hot the oven was, everything can change the precise cooking time. So I'll go ahead and get it uncovered and we'll take a look at it. Once you have it unwrapped, just take a spoon, preferably a big tine fork, and pull it aside. If there's any water left, your rice is not done. This obviously is finished. So we can go ahead and get rid of the top completely. Take the film top off and foil. Anything you might have extra that you can peel off right away. And then we're going to fluff the rice. You want to make sure and use, again, a large tine fork, not a spoon. Because if you use a spoon, it'll just mash it together and trap the starch that's in the rice. If you use the fork and fluff it and mix it gently, the steam is going to carry away some of the starch. Otherwise, that way you don't end up with a gummy mess. I'm going to go ahead and fluff this and then come back. All right, so now I've got it all fluffed. You can see everything's mixed in. And you can just let that cool. Again, as the steam escapes, it'll take some of the starch with it. That way it won't be too gummy. And that's a wrap.